message I would like to give, whether you've had a baby before or you're planning a baby or this is your first baby, that it's important to understand that the mom and dad's health prior to conception is now very important.
Now the dad's health as well. I found that interesting when you said that you talk.
Absolutely, both
which
of them.
kind of makes me not off the hook.
He's contributing genetic material.
Right.
And if the father's overweight or obese or drinks too much or
Yeah.
smokes or has such a poor diet that he's nutritionally depleted, he doesn't have the proper nutrients to make his body work in a healthy way, then that means that at the time of conception, the genes from the father may not be functioning properly because of those things, and they're giving those genes now to this fetus.
Wow.
And the same thing with the mother if she has those issues. And what we learn about, it's called fetal programming. The baby's being programmed in the uterus, either in a positive way or a negative, unhealthy way. Mm-hmm. And certainly we know in the United States, given that we're seeing babies being born that are too fat, babies being born to mom with gestational diabetes, and the high insulin levels fatten up the baby.
Yeah.
And also even premature babies, if they start gaining weight too quickly, that's not a good thing either. So it's going to predispose them to a lifetime of health problems. The risk of obesity themselves, the babies themselves, and now we even see little kids that are obese. So how did that happen? The only way I could think about how it happens is when the baby was in the uterus was exposed to things that changed the genetic imprint to one that's unhealthy.
Wow.
And that's a crude explanation, but that's kind of what happens. And that's why the dad's health is important. And certainly the mom's health is important from the standpoint of once she is pregnant, then her health becomes a more important issue. But dad has a role to play here. And again, if you're planning on getting pregnant, look at your health, look at your eating habits, look at whether there's too much alcohol intake, because that really can damage genes. Look at whether there's any drug issues, smoking. Neither parent should be smoking 6 months before conception.
Yeah.
And lose your extra weight, but do it in a way that you're eating healthy food, the way we talk about low carb, because we get the junk out. You know, we get the sugar out, we get the foods that break down into sugar quickly. None of that is going to be good for this little creature that's starting to grow.
Right.
So that's the first piece of advice. The second one is to plan on spending your pregnancy eating healthy foods. And this idea you're eating for two isn't true. The research shows that you only need about 300 extra calories a day at the end, the last few months of a pregnancy, the last trimester, not from the beginning. And if you gain too much weight at the beginning, you're risking problems with gestational diabetes. And that's a diabetes that occurs during pregnancy because of changes in something called insulin resistance, and that's a natural occurring event. But if you're an overweight or obese mom, before you're pregnant, you have a chance of already being insulin resistant.
Wow.
And then when the process, the natural process happens, you can become more insulin resistant, and that creates the environment to begin to get gestational diabetes.
Right.
If you've had a baby before and had gestational diabetes, you're at more risk. And it's important that you lose your weight before you have another baby. And many women don't. And they just keep adding pounds with each child, and they get more and more disrupted, unhealthy metabolism that each child then can be exposed to.
So somebody a lady who is pregnant now then, I
Right.
suppose the best advice sounds like to get her weight down to a healthy weight as soon as she can.
After pregnancy?
If she is pregnant now, sorry.
Well, you don't try to lose weight when
Right.
you're pregnant.
Right.
But you want to eat the right kind of food so that you can control your weight gain through the entire months.
Okay.
And a lot of what happens is many women will gain a lot of weight at the beginning. Well, the baby's only going to start getting bigger at the end. And that's how women can wind up gaining 75 pounds, and I can't convert it to stone for you, but and that puts mom and baby at risk, both in the delivery and also the risk for the mom having some postpartum problems that in some instances can be fatal. In the United States, the maternal mortality rate is high. And it can be blood clots, there can be strokes postpartum. You don't want to gain excessive weight, and you don't want to go into a pregnancy with excessive weight.
So what about then? You talked about breastfeeding in your presentation and the impact of that.
Right.
Now, my wife did breastfeed for over a year. Wasn't easy. There wasn't, if I'm honest, unfortunately, in the UK, a lot of support for her. So she had to really.
There isn't in the United States at all.
Right.
Either.
So what's the scientific basis for with regards to breastfeeding and maintaining a healthy weight and a healthy baby?
The ratio of the nutrients that are in breast milk is what nature decided was the best thing to give a baby, and a formula could try to duplicate that, but it isn't going to do as well as Mother Nature, ever. But the interesting thing is that women who've had gestational diabetes are at higher risk within 5 to 10 years of becoming a type 2 diabetic.
Right.
But there's research that shows that if the mother even can breastfeed for 3 months, she can significantly decrease that risk up to 15 years.
Wow.
And that's important because these are young women having babies. Yeah. You don't want a woman suddenly at the age of 30 has type 2 diabetes because she had gestational diabetes earlier. So the other thing is that babies who are breastfed generally know when to stop eating. But formula-fed babies, mom, grandmom, whatever, is trying to make the baby try to eat more when they don't want more. Children know when to stop eating. Unfortunately, as adults, we mess up that signal that children have and force them to eat more and more and clean your plate. That goes on the first few years of a child's life, and then the child learns to overeat. That's part of how they can learn to overeat.
So programming the child early on.
Yeah, and also the growth rate is different if a baby's breastfed or bottle fed. The growth rate is more controlled. Everybody likes a chubby little cute little baby, but that's not healthy. And it used to be that the baby would outgrow that so-called baby fat, but nowadays that's not what happens.
They take it with them.
They become a fat, oftentimes an overweight toddler. They become too overweight in the years after. In their teenage years, they could, especially as puberty happens and hormones change, especially young girls can start gaining more weight, and they usually become overweight or obese adults. And that's what that's why this is so important, is to avoid that from happening.
Wow, well thank you so much for your time. It's food for thought. And certainly we're thinking about having another baby, so that's given me some thought as well.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. That's
You're
brilliant.
welcome, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thank you.